Hello.
Hello again. Awesome. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining. I'm Lily.
I'm Maggie, and we are Caturn
Pattern
Return.
return.
And today, what are we talking about today?
We're doing Pluto in Leo.
We've got 1938 to 1957. And oh boy, do we have a lot to say about that.
Yes,
It was just very, very eventful, a lot going on, like a Leo, unforgettable.
right.
So here we go.
Fixed fire energy.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the people are unforgettable. The events shaped the
Right.
world. So unbelievable.
Exactly. And we're coming up in on it too, with it being a fixed sign. We've just gone into Aquarius, which is a fixed sign. So it's going into its opposing sign right now. So right now we're in oppositions with Leo. So we're just totally opposing this generation's views, their values,
Yeah.
everything. So you can totally see that when we kind of go over their values, what they stand for, kind of just
Mhm.
the overall feeling. And we'll go over all of that. And it's a once in a lifetime transit. It's a once in a lifetime time to be opposed a sign. And
Mhm.
fixed energy is stubborn.
Yes.
And we're feeling it. We're
Oh
feeling it.
yeah.
And
Oh
it'll be
yeah.
for the next about 17 to 20 years. So
Oh,
until
oh.
2044. So yeah, it's something. It's something.
It is
Um
something. And if you haven't watched our other or watched or listened to our other episodes, you will know that we are talking about Pluto through the generations. So instead of talking about the boomers, oh, the Gen X, oh, the millennials, oh, the Gen Z. And, if you don't really feel like you belong in the generation society has assigned, Pluto and, you know, Pluto transiting whatever sign at that point, it's going to explain a lot. And maybe that will clarify things a lot more for you than, just, society's arbitrary label, which even the dates for those are really fuzzy, where the dates of Pluto, they're pretty solid. So,
Right. That's what I know I said in the last video, and I'll probably say in every one that we're going
yes.
over Pluto and the generations is everyone's always like, well, what generation do I belong to? Because you go on the internet and you're like, am I a millennial? Am I a boomer? Am I Gen X? Which one am I? And I'm
Yeah.
like, you really have to go to your birth chart because
Yep.
Pluto will tell you where you are. Because also there's retrogrades, there's all different kind of timings. So really knowing where Pluto is in your chart will really show you what generation you are in. And if you are a Pluto in Leo, you are a boomer. We're
You are a
birthed
boomer.
from the Pluto and Cancer generation, and it says a lot about you and how you were parented.
Yes.
Um, so that's a lot around parenting. It's so funny how you can see how it really reflects in the parenting. So Leos
Absolutely.
were parented by the Cancers. So
Yes.
Cancerian parenting is just so motherly, so loving, so caring. I mean, the kids mattered. They really cared
Yes.
for them. And the Leos showed it. Like
Yeah.
they are the children.
Yeah.
They were like, we're coming out, we're leaders, we are number one, we perform, we're special. Like
Yeah.
we're
We're
coming out.
special. Look at us.
Yeah, yeah, we're special. Our parents told us and we're taking over.
Yeah.
And the Cancers just silently step back and let them,
Yeah.
you know.
Like any
So
proud mother.
what's that?
Like any proud mother, just
Right.
stand back and watch your child shine, which we all love
Yeah.
to do. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really funny because there's also a little bit of a shadow side to it. So,
To everything. And
yeah.
Leos really have um unfortunately they're very charming and inventive, but the Leo is very self-confident,
Yes.
prideful, very
Yes.
prideful,
Yes.
and just they have a thirst for power.
Yes.
It's like they have something on their mind and they're going to get it. They have a fixed agenda. They have a belief system. They are the kings of the jungle. Like, it's just that lion, like, I'm the king of the jungle. I have a belief, and rather than being like, well, I have a belief, you have a belief, they want to impart that belief on everybody because their
Yes,
belief is correct. It's fixed in them. And it's
it's
like,
the only
this
one.
belief is mine, and everyone should believe it. I'm the leader. You need to follow. This is correct,
Yeah,
And that's the Pluto and Leo.
yeah.
That's where it comes in.
Yeah, exactly. And the one really interesting little tidbit about that is that, the Pluto and Leo generation, they were told and they were taught that, you obey authority. And that's just
Mhm.
what you do. You just obey authority. So then they were also demanding that authority from everybody younger than them or
Right.
anybody, so they
Yeah.
were like, okay, well, you respect authority and you
Yeah.
respect my authority, and I
Yeah. Then
will
I'm
really
gonna be the authority.
and
Yeah.
I will hold off from doing a really bad South Park impression on that one. So I will not do that, I promise.
Yeah.
I will not
Oh, I
unleash
hear you. I
my
know.
Dennis Hartman because yeah, I can't talk about authority
I know, me
without
either. Oh
without
my
karma
gosh.
kicking in.
No.
So yeah, so a very interesting thing about Pluto and Leo, they were very inward focused.
Mhm.
Me, look at me, my agenda. And like you said, it's my way. It's my way or the highway.
Mhm.
And they tried to get the collective to acquiesce to their own beliefs.
Mhm.
So it is pretty wild. And yeah. So
Yeah, I
go
mean,
ahead.
that's totally a fixed sign thing. I
Yeah.
mean, this is coming from a Pluto in Scorpio, so I'm not knocking, I know.
Yes.
So, there's different degrees. So, but
Yes.
Pluto in Leo definitely has that more authoritative thing, being like, I'm fixed in my ways and people need to follow that. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not really open to seeing the other,
Yeah.
this is just the way, and I like the authority of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
that's just kind of, the belief system is there. They have really, really heavy beliefs. And that's
yeah.
just, they also, Leo rules the fifth house. And
Yeah.
that's the house of children, drama, performing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have amazing performers out of this house. We have, great music and movies that came out of this time, all that stuff, which is all times. But um, we also have like authoritative figures that, if they don't get their way, can be kind of, we've had childish actions or
Yeah.
um,
A little bit of a what we could even probably call a little bit of a temper tantrum.
right, right.
So
Yeah, when you don't get your way, it's like, yeah, you're gonna revert like that.
yeah,
So
exactly. And it's kind of
that's
wild.
just
And
the way.
yeah,
Right.
and it's really funny because it reminds me of the Lion King in the quote where Mufasa is saying, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom. And I feel
Mhm.
like that's
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that really rings true. And we'll talk about that later when we start to segue a little bit more into history of
Hmm.
Pluto and Leo era. And it's pretty wild. So we have a lot of people where natally they are Pluto and Leo, they want power. And yeah. One thing that actually just came up is absolute power corrupts absolutely, and that is definitely one thing that happened. So
Hmm.
it
Yeah,
is, and the one thing, this was a very transformative time. It
yeah.
transformed American culture. It was the beginning of the American teen culture because what happened was, after we kind of recovered from the Great Depression, we recovered from World War I, and the economy was starting to boom again, and
Mhm.
great. So then, young Pluto and Leo kids were getting jobs, but they weren't getting jobs because they needed to. They weren't getting jobs because they needed to support their families. Oh no, they got money for the sake of having money,
Mhm.
and, and of course companies were like, "Ooh, these teenagers, they've got some money. All right,
Mhm.
cool. So let's start marketing to them and like just between cars and movies and music and, dances and, cruising the strip, going to the sock hop, and I know that's a little stereotypical, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it really, and rock and roll, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Birth of rock and roll around that time, right?
Oh yeah, the birth of rock and roll and um, a lot of it came from earlier in the Cancer generation, just the influences and the jazz age and it
Mhm.
just started kind of picking up steam from there.
Yeah, exactly. And we have, I mean, Pluto went into Leo in 1938, and we have World War II starting in 1939. So we have
Yeah.
the start of World War One
Yeah.
in 1914 when Pluto goes into Cancer. So enter Cancer, enter World War One, enter Leo,
Yes.
enter World War II. So we have wars coming
Mhm.
in at the entrance of both of these and ingresses of
Yeah.
Pluto. So it's quite wild how
It's
that
it,
works too.
it's extremely wild,
Hmm.
pretty crazy. And going back to, the teen culture, there was a Life magazine article in 1954 saying basically the nature of the boom is improbable and unprecedented. And good fortune that befell these kids is not that they're spoiled rotten, not that their every possible creature comfort has been handed to them. Instead, it's that they have the opportunity to work in virtually any job that they choose,
Hmm.
and they're able to keep the money that they earn. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's wild. We've got, and then the world wars coming in, then we've got this rise of like insane amount of dictators in
Dictators.
one period. So this
Hmm.
is just not even an American thing. This is a global thing at this point.
Global,
It
right?
is
Which
absolutely,
planets are globally.
yeah,
So it's
well, yeah,
showing
that's an
too these
excellent point.
people that are growing up in this time, and these people that are born in this time are just growing up in a time of just seeing so much dictatorship,
Yeah,
and just knowing of all that stuff. It's there, even if you're not that kind of person, it's just the influence around you. You have to see, like, there's so much of this power going on, so much people taking over. I don't
yeah,
want that. I want the power in
yes,
a way that I think is the right way. So
yeah,
I'm going to do the righteous thing. I'm going to, and my way is fixed in this way. And this is how I'm going to lead the people.
yeah. And it's really crazy, especially when you have all these dictators saying, "My way is the right way,"
Hmm.
and "My way is the right way." No, 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 my way is the right way. You're the bad guys. Oh no, we're the good guy. And it's just like
Hmm.
it's a pretty interesting thing that we've got going on at this time.
Yeah.
It's extremely fiery.
Yeah.
It, it's extremely fiery and it's
Extremely.
extremely fixed, stubborn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I've said to you before, and I know we'll go over all the dates, that's how you could really sum up this time period is fixed fire. You
It's,
have, I'm like, you could sum it up with a Texas oil man and an atomic bomb. I
yeah.
mean, a fixed Texas oil man and oil stuff that goes under the ground, just like Pluto unearths. Pluto rules oil and stuff under the ground, and
Yes.
atomic bomb, fire, fire of Leo. I mean,
Yeah.
just bombastic. Pluto
Mhm.
just blows everything up. This is
Oh yeah.
literally, and that's what we'll go over the date, and it delivered,
Yes,
delivered that.
yes, it did. I mean,
Mhm.
um, just an atomic bomb. We've got Hiroshima, um, August 1945, Nagasaki, same thing, 3 days later, August 9th, 1945. And I mean, our atomic bombs left Japan, this area of Japan, uninhabitable for 75 years.
Yeah.
That's remarkable, to say
Yeah.
the least, like, and not remarkable as in great, but obviously this many years later we're literally making remarks about it. So
Mhm.
it's pretty wild. And then on top of it, we've got Korea, the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. That's another one. It's pretty insane. So
Yeah. Yeah. And we had Pearl Harbor in 1941, in December
yes.
of 1941.
Oh yeah.
So just a lot of hits around this time with war, and obviously the start of World War II, just generally.
Oh, yeah.
But there was just a lot around the manufacturing and everything with the atomic bombs and plutonium, and just there was constant meetings and just kinds of stuff just to enrich plutonium and to really like get this. They really wanted to,
Oh,
everything
yeah.
was about this bomb, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so it was about the power. It was about who had the power, who had the biggest, who had the strongest, who could blow up, and they wanted you to know. And
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Leo, that's Leo in a nutshell.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and they want you to know they're working on it, and that, because other countries were kind of, doing the same because we're in a world war. And how many dictators, we had so much going on in that
Oh,
time,
yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know?
And, to go back to the people, with natally with Pluto and Leo, women became more self-assertive. Women
Mhm.
are not going to be forgotten either. They became more ambitious and, eventually gave birth to the whole women's liberation movement, which, yeah, fantastic. However, you know, it was even despite all of that making headway, they still, basically head-butted with men, and it was a very male dominated society, obviously, and it was easier for men to be heard and had more opportunities to lead and rise in
Mhm.
power to authority and influence. And this is exactly what happened. This is
Yeah,
precisely what happened. And it just, all this power just, it wasn't even just power, it was just corrupted power, and Pluto. That's what Pluto does.
right.
It
Mhm.
corrupts.
So I know you have a list of dictators
Oh
of
my
the
gosh.
times,
Oh
because
yeah.
we have literally the dictators in power in Leo. And then
Yeah.
we have people who are dictators that are born in Leo that I could just write off the top of my head because I know of their age and their birthday. So there's a lot of dictators that were born in this
Yeah.
time, and there's a lot of people who ruled in the time of Leo, and it just kind of reflects that a bit.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go for
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I'm just going off of, I mean, Trump,
Yeah. Yeah, that was
the
interesting.
Bushes,
Yeah. I mean,
Clinton.
and not even just one Bush. We had two, and there were
Yeah,
just conflicts in both.
yeah.
I remember, growing up, it was oh, what was it? I want to say Operation Desert Storm, Operation Desert Shield under George Bush Sr., and then under George W. Bush. I mean, we had the whole 9/11 thing invading Afghanistan. So that's slightly off topic. We'll
Mhm.
go through that one a little bit later, but yeah, I mean George W. Bush.
Yeah,
There you
George
go.
W.
I
Bush
mean, you
and
cannot.
Clinton.
Yeah,
Mhm,
those were wonderful economic prosperous years. However, that
mhm.
was not without its conflict also.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty wild.
I mean,
But
yeah, there's still things. But yeah, of the people who ruled in Leo's times, what we have Hitler.
oh, we've got Hitler, we have Stalin, we have Mussolini, we have Federico Franco, we have Mao Zedong, we have Juan Perón, Charles de Gaulle. I mean, that's a list. That's a
Mhm,
lot for one time. And then, it's an interesting thing, and it's even kind of odd to say it, but at that time, it was definitely considered that FDR was to be granted basically the powers of a dictator.
mhm.
And I know
Right.
generally as a an American child, an American adult, we were raised to believe that all of our presidents were just benevolent, and
Mhm.
the
They're only
possibility,
people.
yeah, the possibility was there for
Mhm.
FDR to also be a dictator.
Yeah.
Those powers were almost handed to him, and I think a
Mhm.
lot of people do still kind of consider that, but that's a topic for another podcast, I'm sure.
Sure, I'm sure we can
Maybe
go on
somebody
and on.
maybe somebody else's podcast, they can touch that one, but that's,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
sure. Oh my gosh.
oh
Trying
yeah.
to see
So,
what else here. Um, I have a lot on, we're going into Virgo next, which is exciting.
Yeah. I like to jokingly refer to that as boomer two.
Yeah, boomer two,
Boomer
boomer
two.
light,
Yeah.
and
And
they're the
it's
cleaner uppers of this
yeah,
mess a bit.
the organizers of the mess. However, there's still a lot of obviously it's not fixed energy, but it's very certain energy. Virgo
Mhm,
is very certain of themselves,
mhm.
very certain of things, and they enjoy certainty. So
Right, right.
yes.
Oh, and there's another thing around parenting and the Leo generation, because there's always such a big thing around um, the boomer generation, always kind of like crapping on Gen X
Yes.
and millennials,
Yes.
always being like, it's such a Leo thing. I mean, boomers love to be like, we're the best. We
Yeah.
had the best because we are the best, right?
Yes.
Because that's a Leo thing. Like they like to show off. Like we had the best music, we had the best style, we had the best movies, and
Yeah.
they had some great stuff. But not to mention, like, let's not forget, not everything is crap. Gen X, like, 80s,
Oh gosh.
90s, even now, people like there's great music. You just have to open your mind. Like there
Yeah.
really is. You need to open your
Exactly.
mind.
Exactly.
Um, but they love to be like everything else is subpar. Everything,
Everything else.
Gen
What's
X
this?
are slackers.
What's this
Millennials are
grunge?
cuddled. They're like
Yeah.
so
What's this
cuddled.
grunge crap? Yeah.
Yeah, so they
Exactly.
love to go on and on about that, and I mean, not to say the other generations are always we're always like boomers are,
Yeah.
we all
I mean,
everyone has something to say about each other's generations.
yeah.
But in the parenting section of that is that just as we said the Cancers gave birth and made the Leos the way they are, Leos gave birth to and raised this generation. A
Yeah.
lot of the Pluto and Leos raised the Gen Xers. And
And
even some of the Scorpios, if they were really older parents than them, I
yeah.
mean, there's some people that, but they are the parents of the Gen Xers. So it really, really reflects more of you. The generation after you really reflects more of your generation if you
Yeah.
look at it, because it's what you imparted into the world, the way. So you
Yeah.
really have to look after you to see,
Yes.
and so when you're really talking crap on the generation after you, even if you don't have kids, you still have an influence on the world and how you left it to where the
Yes.
generation after you sees it and communicates with it, and whatever job you do, whatever you do, where you're part around the people you just communicate with every day.
Yeah.
So it says a lot of more about them than it does about the people.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
And oh, go ahead.
oh, no, that's okay. I was just saying, like, slackers, I don't know why they feel that Gen X is such slackers.
Well,
um
it's really funny actually because I had heard a really good response to that once, and
mhm,
it's actually on the Generation X documentary on Disney Plus of all things, and
mhm,
it was really good. We haven't finished it yet, unfortunately, and I'd really like to, but it was just like there were no jobs for us to have. I think this is
mhm,
actually referring to the .com bust. Like the 90s were very um the 90s were very prosperous years, but we had the .com boom. Okay, cool. All right, we're embracing technology. This is amazing. But then we had the .com boom, and a lot of us were starting we were going through college or starting our careers at that point, and there were no jobs to have. So they were
right,
looking at us like, "Oh, you slackers." And it was like, "Are you kidding me? There are just no jobs to have." Like
mhm,
we could go out and try to get jobs. Hired? No, not really. And I think that's a really important thing, and like the other thing is too, teenagers were doing teenagers, and teenagers will all be, will forever be teenagers. And they're not okay, they're adult sized, but they're not adult formed yet. You know, um, like your brain isn't fully formed, until you're at least in your mid 20s. So, to look at especially to look at teenagers and say, oh, they're slackers, they're not doing anything. Well, they weren't really, the boomers might not really have been doing anything either. They might have just been doing teenager things, but of course, just because it's easy to crap on somebody else to try to make yourself look good, you
The
know,
opportunities may not be the same as what they
exactly,
were.
exactly. And
And it's hard for some people that are fixed to open their minds to that.
yeah.
And what I didn't think of, kind of skipped over, because I'm thinking of you as like a Gen X with a parent that has a Leo,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Pluto.
mean,
But
is
really, what it imparts a lot, if you're looking at the generation after, is Leo gave birth to Scorpio, or I mean, I'm sorry, why am I going straight to that? Gave birth to
Libra.
Virgo, which
Oh,
were people
Virgo,
that
yeah.
were just like clean up, overachieve, overachieve, you
Yeah.
know? So it says a lot about that, because Leos are kind of more about themselves and achieving and being whatever. So it kind of gave birth to a generation that were like anxiety ridden.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
um,
I see that so much in millennials especially, and I definitely, looking back at my life, because I'm no spring chicken anymore, and I just see a lot of this achievement, especially in the early 90s, just
mhm,
or early mid 90s, and just like all these kids with anxiety, and it was just like I know this is not quite on topic for Leo, but all these there was just so much pressure for these kids to succeed, and this was that was the entrance of the tiger parent. But
mhm,
and then to go back to Leo, it was very look at me, look at me, look at me, and
mhm,
what I'm doing is very important. Meanwhile, Gen X was a generation of latchkey kids, and it
mhm.
was set it and forget it.
Yeah.
Just the old infomercial. Oh, they'll be fine. Oh, yeah, they can just go home, let themselves in with a little key around their neck. They can go,
Mhm,
they can make themselves a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and sit in front of the TV until I get home at 6.
mhm,
So it was just very like set it and forget it. And I have to say, and granted, obviously, there are lots of loving, wonderful parents out there, but I'm going to say a lot of us had the experience of the Leo parent for fulfilling their career dreams. They were very
mhm,
inward, career focused, and I think that's kind of like I think that's really manifesting now with many of us being in therapy at this point, and kind of we're trying our best to meet in the middle with our parents and say, hey, will you come to therapy with us? Will you, just understand my point of view? This was my experience, and they'll be like, oh, well, no, I did the best I could. I was an amazing parent. And it was
mhm.
like, no, you were amazing at your career. As a
Yeah.
parent, maybe not so much.
Mhm.
And so many
And
people,
that's so Gen X, Libra,
yeah,
Scorpio, or I'm
and
sorry, I keep saying Scorpio.
it's okay.
Pluto is in Libra is just so like I'm getting into therapy, and it's so much Gen X is like all about, all right, how am I going to heal this
Yeah,
so that I don't impart this onto future generations. It's like
yeah,
the
on the
first
our kids.
healing generation. It's like harmonizing to not impart this, you know. Now we're getting into Gen X so much sooner.
I
But
know. It's
hey, a lot of Gen Xers have Leo parents.
Pluto and Leo parents. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. And then I think the thing that gets me the most, and I'm seeing this frequently, time and time and time again. I follow a lot of, therapy Instagram accounts, and I know that I'm obviously in therapy myself, but I like to learn as much as I can or do as much as I can. And the one common theme I'm seeing about a lot of these Pluto and Leo parents is that they're refusing to go to therapy. They're like, no,
Mhm.
not going to go. I'm not wasting my money. I'm not wasting my time for them to tell me I was a bad parent.
Mhm.
And it's just like and you just see the stubborn, fixed energy.
Yeah.
And it's just really hard because we're trying, and
Yeah.
that's a little projection on my part, but I'm definitely seeing
Mhm.
that a lot in other people.
And
It's
I'm
a
sure
it's
a
a
lot of people can relate to that though. That's so
it's
relatable. And a
it's
lot
a
of people don't
really
want to face that. And that's such a
no,
Plutonian thing, like
right.
just not wanting to dig that out. And Leo not wanting to face that.
Yeah,
and
and they
just
don't.
come to terms with that. It's just it's
And
not. They're right, and it just hurts. It's like, no, I'm right, and it's kind of the child wound, and
yes, it's the, "You can't tell me I'm wrong. I'm not gonna go," and they're down on the
yeah.
floor kicking and screaming, flailing their arms, and it's just,
Mhm.
many of us
They're
Pluto and Libra
fixed.
are just like, "Hey,
They're
we're
fixed.
trying. Can we
Yeah.
help?" Like, and it's just like, "We can try to repair this relationship, mom. We can try to repair this relationship, dad." And they're just like,
Mhm.
"Nope."
Mhm.
It's pretty wild. So it's
Yeah. It's a coming to terms time with
yeah.
the Leo generation, just being like, a lot of people are coming to terms that a lot of them, and I'm sure there's plenty that it's like, well, that's not my experience there, baby. And there's certainly aspects to it that are like, this is not every single
Oh,
person.
yeah, no,
There's
this is not,
generally a
yeah.
Plutonian very fixed way of this. And like I said, I have a fixed Pluto too. So it's getting to know yourself and coming to terms with being
Yeah,
like, this is a fixed way. Let me open my mind to this, you
yeah,
know?
and
Um,
honestly, I feel like that's the whole root of our podcast.
mhm,
That's why we're doing what we're doing.
right.
I think that's
Right.
it. I
Hmm.
think what you just said really just summed up the whole purpose of our whole podcast.
Yes,
So,
exactly. Exactly.
be
It
better,
really gives you
learn more about us, understand ourselves, understand our kids, and and just to be better, just to do better. And
Mhm.
if we can help you through that, or maybe if we're opening your eyes to something that maybe you didn't see before, this is why we do it.
Yeah, exactly. And history just keeps, again, like everyone's saying, repeating itself. It's a mirror. We can actually look at it and kind of try to do it a little bit better. Be like, why are we doing this again? I mean, you know, yeah.
Exactly.
So, also in the time, not to be off topic, but
Yeah.
in this time, um, I just keep thinking of all the oil rigs they had put in.
Yes. Oh
And
yeah, that's a
from
good point.
Texas to PA, from Texas to New Jersey, they
Oh yeah.
had put in, I guess it was in, I'm trying to get, I think it was 1943. They did the big inch crude pipeline
Oh
from
yeah.
Texas to PA. So this is when they really started in the US, like making their like plutonian things underground. That's Pluto, things that are put underground, Leo, to make big money. I mean, this is when they're
Big
really
money.
starting to,
and
yeah,
and
big
yeah.
ka-ching, ka-ching. Um, and they're drilling here now.
Yeah.
So
And it's funny because what makes me think of, like, you think of oil rig, you think of large, fixed, and unforgettable.
yes,
Right
and
there.
sometimes fires.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. I didn't even think of that. And fires.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. Fires. Oh.
Um, so yeah, so we have the start of all of that in this time period. So, and this is
Gosh,
just what brings in so much money, and just that whole like um ideology of kind of what is it, like capitalism, like this being a great thing,
mhm.
like, yeah, everyone works so hard and that's how you get your money, and you hard, and
And
just
it's
like
like, no, we're
there's that
we're
mindset that's really dug in this time. It feels like it's just like, well, they worked hard, they deserve it, they deserve to be multimillionaires. And like there's that kind of mindset around this generation, that people should have so much and they deserve it, and other people like, well, they don't have it because they probably deserve that. They
yeah,
probably
no.
deserve not to have it.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
kind of
And
like
that is something
big.
that is one thing that absolutely grinds my gears. You know,
Mhm,
whether somebody, have something or not, it has to do with how, how hard they worked or do not work, and what
mhm,
they have and deserving. Oh my gosh. We could probably have a whole other episode on that one.
mhm.
Oh,
So that's kind of a whole mindset around the
yeah.
Pluto in Leo. Um, And at the very end, we have in 1957, because it's going out in 1957, we
Yep.
have the Soviet Union successfully launching Sputnik. So we're kind of focusing less on what's underground and what's going up here.
Yep.
So there's that big change.
Blasting into the future.
Blasting into the future, blasting out of Leo.
Yeah. Oh, that's
You know.
that's a very interesting note to land on, right?
Mhm.
Or to
Yeah.
blast off from, either way.
Yeah.
The space.
Just so much. I mean, the styles were big and boisterous. Yeah, like, just people just being more styles, like rock and roll being, the birth of rock and roll. You just have
Which, yeah.
the birth of rock and roll. I mean, they kind of like stole kind of
Well,
from
from
Little
jazz.
Richard and Chuck Berry, but like
Yeah.
music came out in that time. There was just a lot that happened. It was, but again, like that time was just so
It changed the world. It changed the world.
it
It changed the
failed.
world on a global scale.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
think
it was just
boomers
big.
is a perfect name because it's like a
Yeah.
bomb. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
what this time was. All I can think is
Yeah.
just bomb. Like
Boom. Yeah.
it's
That's
a bomb.
Yeah,
The time was
exactly.
a bomb.
That's a very interesting point because, it's generally referred to as, oh, the baby boom, but
Yeah.
I feel like the way you put it is probably more of a accurate moniker. So,
Yeah. I'm thinking
yeah.
more bombs went off that time in that
Oh my
time
God. Oh,
most.
that's
I mean,
terrible. I shouldn't laugh.
geez.
I'm laughing at the pun, not at the actual horrific events.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. So, but yeah, I knew we were gonna do both in one. We were gonna do Boomer and Boomer 2, but I think this is like
Oh no. We need to
we
do
should,
Boomer 2 next time
yeah,
because
because the Virgos have done so much. They've done enough. They deserve their own time.
yes,
They have worked
absolutely.
so hard.
Yes.
They need their own. So we'll definitely give them their fair share, their own
Oh
time
yeah.
that they desperately
Absolutely.
deserve.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Very cool. So,
Yeah.
shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up. I'm so glad that we did this today.
Oh, heck yeah. We got it done. Took us a while. Took us a long night or a long day. Not a long night. I'm
It's been
looking
a
at
long
my
day.
northern lights in the background. I don't know if you're watching this or hearing
It's
this
gorgeous.
either way. I've got
Mm.
northern lights in the background. Um, but yeah, thank you everybody for joining
Yeah,
us. We
thank you for
really, really
joining.
appreciate you. We are launching a Patreon soon. We are launching an Etsy store. So we have lots of good things coming. I think we came up with a catchphrase today, or not a catchphrase, a slogan today. So it's an old Norwegian, I don't want to say not parable. What is I don't know the word I'm looking for, but there is no bad weather, only bad clothing. And I think we're going to stick with that. And I think that's
Yeah,
cool
it's
because
just like the skies.
just
It's
like the
there's
sky, it's the
no
skies.
bad, yeah, there's no bad aspects in the planets.
Yeah,
There's only not being prepared or aware of it. I
yeah,
mean, yes, you're gonna be handed shit in your life that it's
yes,
inevitable. It's you can't just be like, oh, I know that this is an aspect that means that things might be a little wonky and I'm gonna just totally skirt it. Things are gonna be skewed sometimes, and sometimes it's just gonna happen,
yeah.
but you can prepare yourself a little bit or emotionally get yourself a little, or at least have tools in your toolbox to, you
And
know, be
and just
able
a
to
little,
grab from. And some things might be able to skirt,
yeah,
some
you
things you
never
might be
know.
able to
You know,
skirt. So it's great just to have these aspects and take advantage of the great ones. Know when there's a good time to ask for that raise. Go out to that party and ask that person out. Know when to
yeah.
just maximize your time. Have that conversation with that person, that heart to heart, like to make the most of this crazy experience we have here.
Yes, exactly. Very,
Yep.
very, very well
But
said.
yeah, follow us on Instagram at Caturn Return. Again,
Yes,
we have on Patreon. We're here on YouTube. We have
yes.
Spotify. Amazon Music. Yeah, all at Caturn Return.
Yeah,
It's
we will
my
be
pleasure.
everywhere before you know it. So again, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you more than you know. So
Yes,
thank
thank
you
you.
again.
Thanks for joining
And
us for Pluto in Leo.
or Pluto and Virgo. Or are we wrapping it up? I don't know. Either
Yeah,
way,
Pluto and Virgo next time. But thank you for joining us for Leo this time.
there we go. It's been a day.
We'll see you next time. It has been a day.
It has been.
We'll see you
Bye.
all next time. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.